these are based on the latest rankings, the matchups for the 12-team college football playoff, and a little bit of controversy with that 11 seed and last team in being Alabama. You look at the matchups, Oregon, Texas, SMU, Boise State at the moment would project to get buys into the quarterfinals, but that last at large spot. Pete Thamel with the commissioner of the SEC, Greg Sankey. Pete?
Reese, 1 year ago, we had Greg Sankey about 30 yards from here on a different stage, and he famously said, one of these things is not like the other in terms of his league, the SEC, and everybody else. Greg, you obviously have a cluster of 3 lost teams. Alabama's status for the playoff is going to be in flux going into this weekend. Are you still convicted that one of these things is not like the other?
Oh, absolutely. I start with, we don't send our logo into other conference championships. We send our basketball teams to kick ass during the week, which happened this week. The second part is our strength of schedule. There's 25 ranked teams by the CFP. There's one of those with a schedule strength that would fit in any of the 16. In other words, 14 of our teams have a better strength of schedule than all but one of the CFP top 25. And by the way, you look at the principles, the first thing listed is strength of schedule. It's not about just losses. It's about the strength of how you challenge yourself. We're 8-3 against ACC teams during the season. You watch Georgia start here in Mercedes-Benz Stadium with a resounding win. You watch South Carolina with a big win, both over Clemson. This is the strongest league in college football and needs to be respected for that.
Okay, so you have said going into the season, generally about the playoff selection process in the committee, this has to go incredibly well. What would incredibly well look like for you this weekend?
Well, the context of that was really about the playoff overall. The onset of first-round games on campus, the progression through quarterfinals and semifinals. For this weekend, and I think Warde did a nice job explaining the committee's perspective on Tuesday. Now, I want to have more SEC teams under consideration. I've got 2 others beyond just Alabama being on the edge that I think are significant components in the opportunity for the postseason. But the committee has to make its decision, and we receive that. I think the committee's going to have to explain itself effectively if you ask, what does that mean for this weekend? Okay,
that makes sense. Greg Sankey, SEC Commissioner. Reese, back to you. Thanks, Greg.
All right, Peter, now joining us for what you might characterize as responsible opposing view is the commissioner of the Atlantic Coast Conference, Jim Phillips. Jim, let's start with this at large, and Miami being the first team out. The committee said, Warde Manuel, the chair of the selection committee, said on Tuesday night the order of the teams is set. What is your reaction to that?
I was stunned to see Miami, who went into the last weekend 6th ranked team in the country, go to a top 25 team at Syracuse and lose by 4 and fall 6 spots when an Alabama team went and played Auburn, a 2-6 team, and jumped up two spots. An 8-spot swing in one weekend was unbelievable, I think, to the ACC. Miami has 2 losses all year, Reese. A loss at Georgia Tech, who's 7-3 with Haynes King as quarterback, and we all saw how good Georgia Tech was on that Friday after Thanksgiving, and to a 9-3 Syracuse team who's top 25 in the country. The committee has said on multiple times, we really are about watching winning teams. We value winning. And that's what our teams have done. We've had a winning record against the Big Ten. We've had a winning record against the Big 12. We've won more games against the SEC than any other conference. We have fulfilled that. And for Miami to be leapfrogged in the last weekend, 8 spots, when on the same weekend you had Michigan play Ohio State. Ohio State was a huge favorite in the game. They lost the game to a 6-5 Michigan team and fell 4 spots. It doesn't make sense.
Well, this highlights, Jim, some of the difficulties in doing the subjective evaluation. We'll talk to Warde Manuel to see whether those teams on the edge that don't play anymore are the ones that are supposedly locked in the space. Very quickly, if you can. SMU, should it lose to Clemson, is going to have a resume very similar to Miami's, which is deemed not as good as Alabama's. What's the case for SMU should it lose against Clemson today?
Reese, unequivocally, SMU needs to be in. They're 11-1. They're 8-0 in the conference. There's 2 teams in the 68 Power 4 schools that went undefeated in the conference, the Oregon Ducks and the SMU Mustangs. They're 9-0 with Kevin Jennings as their quarterback. Last year, we suffered through having to hear about Jordan Travis being out and Miami not being the same. Well, it cuts both ways. Since Jordan Travis took over, they're 9-0. They have more Power 4 wins than Texas does. And if you start to take teams in championship weekend that are supposed to be protected inside the 11 or 12, and some sit home and others have to play, and you could potentially lose and be disinvited to the championship, you've turned it into an invitational. There's not another team in the country that would want to play. Another week of rest, everybody would want to do that. So if you get penalized for playing in a championship game and you're inside the bracket and get disinvited, that's not a tournament anymore. That's not a championship.
Jim, we appreciate your perspective. And just for clarity, obviously Jim meant Kevin Jennings when he said Jordan Travis, referring to SMU. Jim, appreciate it. Best of luck today. Have a great championship game between Clemson and SMU. There's Jim Phillips, the commissioner of the ACC. Chairman of the College Football Playoff Selection Committee, Warde Manuel, kind enough to join us now. Warde, let's start with SMU and Clemson and just a general philosophy from the committee about evaluating a team that falls into the at-large pool as opposed to a team that is putting itself at further risk by actually playing in a championship game. This most notably pertains to SMU. How will the committee handle things should SMU not become an automatic qualifier?
Well, Reese, it's good to be with you. We're not, I'm not going to get into projections, so I can't tell you exactly how the committee will evaluate it. But we will take a good hard look at each team, as we've done every year since I've been on this committee and before, and evaluate the teams that are playing in the championship game. The commissioners have asked us to do that, and that's what we're here to do in Grapevine today.
Okay, so losers of championship games will be evaluated among the at-large pool. Is that fair to say?
Probably fair to say that. Yeah, we don't look at it as an at-large pool, but we will evaluate the teams and how they play. And again, Reese, this is something that has been done every year in the final week. We've evaluated teams. Teams can move up and down, but what you won't see is teams who are not playing move above or below other teams who are not playing. But we have these movements because of the championship game annually every year.
Okay. And Warde, that was what I was going to ask you next. And just to put a punctuation mark on this, you said on Tuesday night the teams that aren't playing, that you guys had considered this, spent a lot of time on it last week, and established the order among the teams that are not playing, not meaning that other teams couldn't move within the midst of that. But their order will remain the same. Has anything changed about that?
No, it hasn't, Reese. For example, Notre Dame and Ohio State. Ohio State will not move above Notre Dame, and Notre Dame won't move below Ohio State, but they can fluctuate and move in terms of where they're seated, they're set in the rankings in the top 25. And that's based on the championship games. And that's how what we've been tasked to do and what we're planning on doing as we look at these games and rank the teams for tomorrow.
This is the projected bracket right now. Now, there are some, including Big 12 Commissioner Brett Yormark, who would not be happy with whether it's Arizona State or Iowa State being here in the 12 instead of this Boise State getting the bye. But this is the way the bracket would look right now. As you look at this right now, what jumps out to you in terms of what could be settled today?
Just hoping for anti-chaos. So what am I hoping for? You tell me. If SMU wins, Clemson's going to be out. If Clemson wins, that becomes the chaos.
How would you look at that? Because that's the drama. Based on what Warde Manuel just said, the only drama is if Clemson, who's not even in the top 13, knocks SMU out of a bye and into the at-large pool, and whether it's Alabama or Clemson. How would you look at this?
I'd like to hear what Coach Saban has to say about that. What do you think?
Well, I hear these guys talking over here about who they lost to. Who did you beat?
Oh, but it's the record, though. They're
looking at record, but who did you beat? SMU, how many top 25 teams did they beat? How many top 25 teams did Alabama beat? And I don't think that we want to go down the road with this whole playoff thing where we enhance people for playing a weaker schedule to get more wins.
Yeah.
Now, there's 4 good teams in the ACC. But SMU played one of them. Miami played one of them. Nobody played those teams, so you can't even evaluate it based on the good teams in their league.
Yeah.
Steve, I think the big thing that I'm looking at, and obviously the Big 12 having a one-team bid and them being 12 on the outside looking in, Reese, that's certainly a conversation. Are you a P4 anymore? You know, what's the benefits of P4 if you're going to be in there? Well, the ranking is the only thing that matters, which goes into the seeding. The SMU-Clemson chaos is certainly very real. Then you have to wonder about Alabama, because I think Warde just said there, didn't want to give you an answer, but he said if you're not playing in the last week, we're not going to reseed you. Well, SMU would be ranked above Alabama, so then you would think if Clemson comes in, SMU just falls into this spot right here, and Alabama can roll tide their ass right out of the 12-team. I don't love it, but I'm just saying that's kind of what Warde Manuel has kind of been alluding to.
Well, no, I wouldn't say that, because what he alluded to is the teams that aren't playing today would move, and SMU could fall behind there and could stay in front of them.
My biggest problem with this team right here is this number right here. So to me, if you handle your business, then you don't put it in the committee's hands. But this team lost a game where they were a 3-touchdown favorite, and they lost another game when they were a 13-point favorite, and they only scored 3 points. In that situation, you need to handle your business, and to me, you forfeit the right to bitch about what Warde and the committee says moving forward. Because you didn't do what you were supposed to do.
So you would put
especially in your conference where it means more.
Yeah. Right. But who would you put ahead of them?
Well, it just depends on what happens. Like, this is the team that's the problem, right? So, go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, the one thing that's most interesting to me because of the outcomes of the Big Ten and the SEC today is who ends up here. Because, I mean, if Texas loses, where do they go? And then if Penn State were to upset Oregon, where do they go? So now you got a whole shuffle at the top, and now you're talking about difference of home games. And, you know, everybody's talking about the cold weather and warm teams going to play the
I love
cold.
that fact. I hope you get a bunch of these teams
Can we
up in places like here and here and here.
All right, so this team beat 3 top 15 teams. They lost some games they shouldn't lose. But I think the windup of all this is very simple.
Yep.
There is not one coach in the country that should complain about the fact that they don't get in the playoffs because the people who aren't going to get in the playoffs, regardless of who they are, did not take care of business on a team they should have beat.
Absolutely.
That's the
Can we say
That's my point.
I want to say this, and you can finish it up here. Among all these teams, Alabama, Miami, Ole Miss, South Carolina, SMU, if they lose today, the one thing they've proven, they all can screw up. So then you have to decide what's more important to you. Is it what you are at your best, or is it that you screwed up less than somebody else?
Yeah, the inconsistency makes it really hard. But I think all of us would agree that if it's about records, hey, we have 10 wins. Hey, we have 11 wins. We played one ranked team. And I'm not saying who that might be. We have to really appreciate teams that are willing to play tough games, whether it's non-conference, whether it's conference play. At the end of the year, you look at 5 or 6 teams that you played, 3 of them on the road. Yeah. The committee last year honored that. You have to respect that more than, hey, we're 12-0.
Hey, real quick question.
Record doesn't.
You think Florida State should get in this year? Do you think Florida State should get in this year?
I think there's always room. There's always room for everybody. Everybody should. I think it should just keep going. Keep going. Put them in. Put everybody in.
Go team.
Go team.
AT&T Bracket Insights College Football Playoff Bracket Challenge. Everybody loves the NCAA Tournament Bracket. Now you can do it for football. Our first CFP Bracket Challenge. Chance to win 50 grand. You can create a group, compete among family and friends, or compete against enemies if you prefer. Sign up at ESPN.com/CFP Challenge. So there you go.
There you go.
You know what? You guys wanted to extend the Superdog season. There's Superdog Peter coming here.
Did we?
Yeah.
Here to DoorDash Superdogs.
Where's everybody at 91?
Going for game day greatness, but there aren't enough big spreads to really do Superdogs this week. So here are DoorDash Superdogs, and look at this.
Oh, damn.
It appears. It appears.
Wow.
Look at this.
Wow.
Wait. Set.
David.
Take a knee. This is what I want. Let me tell you something.
He won a belt.
The great Lee Corso says, when you lose, say little. When you win, say less. I love LC, but sometimes you're not right, LC.
Congratulations, Reese.
Coach, limousine riding, jet flying, pick win.
Right there.
Kiss Steven, we've been dealing. Superdome champion, son of a gun. And I'm having a hard time keeping these delegators on the ground.
Congratulations. That's awesome.
Very good.